I'm Reece Stein.
And I'm Marianne Stein. Along the way in Stockholm, Sweden.
A city with a rich history.
And exquisite architecture. There's a picture around every corner.
And a great archipelago. In fact, it gives Sweden the distinction of having more islands than any other country in the world. Sweden's capital city is spread over 14 of the 30,000 islands in the Swedish archipelago in the Baltic Sea. The best way to see Stockholm is by the fleet of ferries that wander through channels lined with multi-hued apartment buildings, locals sunning themselves in the Swedish sun, and forested parkways with trails popular with walkers and scooter riders.
The nice villas here, the houses, everything with the boat life and the water. This is really charming, and this is also quite unique.
Further out, islands big and tiny sprout colorful houses, each with its own boat dock, some with 7 swans a-swimming. On this day, the ferry must dodge dozens of ocean-going yachts, positioning themselves for an international race into the Baltic. Stockholm's glorious old town, with buildings dating to its founding in the 13th century, is on its own island, right in the middle of everything. And at the hub is the town square, bordered by colorful buildings surrounding the 18th century well. The northeast corner is dominated by the Baroque royal palace dating from the 18th century. While the royals no longer live here, they moved to fancier digs in the country, the place is still protected, and the ceremonial changing of the guard is a tourist favorite. The palace, with 1,400 rooms, dates from 1754 and houses the offices of King Carl Gustaf. Downstairs, a display of 13th century armor and transportation fit for a king in the Royal Armory. Nearby, the Nobel Prize Museum honors 700-plus winners who shuffle around the ceiling like shirts at the dry cleaners. Sweden's History Museum features 3,000 gold and silver trinkets. The 20th Century City Hall features a 365-step bell tower with spectacular views of the city, the glittering mosaic Gilded Hall, and the brick-lined Central Hall, where the tours begin, except on December 10th, when the Nobel Prize winners and their guests feast at the Nobel Banquet. The Underground Medieval Museum includes a 16th century warship resurrected from the muck and a recreation of the town from the 1520s. And speaking of warships, the jaw-dropping Vasa Museum has turned one of history's great maritime disasters into a tourism bonanza. Launched in 1628, she had 2 decks of 72 cannons, which made her so top-heavy that a gust of wind tipped her over 40 minutes into her maiden voyage. After 3 centuries on the bottom of Stockholm Harbor, she was raised in 1961 and is now featured in her very own museum, the must-see attraction in Stockholm. Down the street, Skansen, the world's oldest outdoor museum, features 150 historic buildings and farms from all over the country. The public ferry system connects more than 100 of the islands, including charming Grinda, a mostly nature preserve with an inn and restaurant, and a wonderful 3-mile loop trail through the pristine forest with spectacular views of the archipelago. Museums, islands, parks, water, and medieval traditions make for a glorious multi-day visit. Reece Stein with Marianne along the way in Stockholm, Sweden.